it's been a tough time, and in these times that I feel like, knowing tough times before and darkness before, in times of darkness or our little bit of lack of spirituality, we can feel like people out there are failing us. What's happening? But it's not people out there. It's our relationship with God that really gets tested during these times of darkness. We're social beings, and to be told we can't see each other or be with each other, we have to shelter in place, it's not what we're made of. We're like interdependent beings, and so much of who we are, we figure out through each other, by times we spend together, by getting to know one another and seeing how we show up. So it's hard. Would you agree? It's hard. It's been hard, and I'm ready to be out of it. Aren't you? But we don't know quite when, so we have to do our best and keep focusing on the better, keep our spirits lifted and our hearts open. We are so well designed, we forget it. But as human beings, we have a divine plan in us. Not a layout, a blueprint of everything we're going to do and everywhere we're going to go and how we're going to get there, but we know we're all going in the same place, to the same place. Back to our unity, our oneness with God and all life. We know that inside of us. So there's a place in us that can guide us if we'll just let it. But in order to truly let that divine plan be activated, there's something we have to accept. That this life, when we ask, what's the meaning of life? Sometimes when everything feels like it's taken away from us, did you ask once during this pandemic, did you ever ask, what's it all about? What's the meaning of this whole thing? I don't get it. Why here? Why us? Why me? Why now? And we ask, what's the meaning? We want an answer. At least I do want an answer. What's the meaning of life? But that beautiful, beautiful professor, author, comparative literature and mythology studier, Joseph Campbell said, being alive is the meaning of life. And that means being alive to all of life, the wholeness of life, the joy and the sorrow, the good and the difficult, the pleasure and the pain, being open to all of it. And the mystics tell us the same thing. Mechthild of Magdeburg, love her, the little German mystic, said, we have been given two wines to drink in this life, the white wine of joy and the red wine of sorrow. Until we have drunk deeply of both, we will not be fully alive. And that's a hard thing, isn't it? To be able to be with pain and be with darkness and understand it. I'll tell you, I've done this on both sides of the spectrum. At times in my life where I've been absolutely broken open and didn't think I could even make another step, I talked to somebody who had been through it and lived through it. Losing a child is not something I ever thought I could live through. But I was not a minister then, but I talked to one of the ministers who was at teen camp I went to, who'd also lost a child, a teenager, a girl about the same age. And I remember waiting till 6 o'clock in the morning that I could just call and talk to her. And when I heard her voice, I went, I'm going to be okay. And I've done the same for many people too. Listening to other people can help us a lot. And that's why Julian has a lot to teach us. We don't know much about Julian of Norwich. She was an English Christian mystic in medieval times. She was an anchoress, so she lived alone in a cell at the back of a church for more than 40 years. Now, she did a little more than just live there, but I'll tell you, she stayed there, but she was busy when she was there. But her whole life was spent in a raging pandemic. History says 50% of the people in Europe died during that plague. So she lost her whole family. She lived during that pandemic, and she survived and thrived. She did not push it away. She accepted the darkness. She asked, what does this pain have to teach me? What does this pain have to teach me? The thing is, she didn't dwell on the darkness. What she spent her time dwelling on and thinking about were remedies to the problem. How can I make this better? You know, she'd been through tough times here. It was about 30 years old. What she's best known for is her book, Revelations of Divine Love. And when she was 30 years old, she got severely ill. She was so ill, she knew she was going to die. She was given last rites. And on her deathbed, she got these intense visions from God, intense visions about life. And she wrote it and wrote and wrote. And she would spend time, here she is in the busy city of Norwich. She had this little window right on the street there. And she would give spiritual counseling to people. Spiritual counseling that would help people deal with the trauma to survive during a pandemic. Now, her theology was extremely optimistic. God is good. When? All the time. That's what she believed. God is good. She had this optimistic theology, and she believed she was a real champion of non-dualism. And she also really focused on the feminine, nurturing aspect of God. She really felt, so that's what she was professing to all these people. In her book, which is the only, I think, the best known manuscript of the medieval times, was written by a mystic and a woman. And they don't know any other woman that was doing writing like that at that time. And her book survived. And I read somewhere, I don't know if it's actually true, but I loved it. Reverend Sage, after your talk last week when you talked about enjoy life, you know, I've been using that on my papers, on my list that I write every day. Julian of Norwich really translated enjoy into the English language. They found it. I guess that's the earliest translation they can find. And it came from the French word that meant to give joy. We think of enjoy to find things that give us joy, right? I enjoy this. That's our meaning. But when she wrote it and wrote the word in English, it meant to give joy, to be a person who shares joy. Do you like that? I love that. That made me feel really good and happy. A new way of expanding that word to be sure we're being someone who gives joy to others. So she's known for her book. She lived during that pandemic. She was really somebody to realize that she didn't dwell on the darkness. She learned from it and shared her wisdom with others. She did her inner work and really asked us to do the same. A saying that's found throughout her writings is, all will be well, and every being and everything will be well. And that wasn't a spiritual bypass. It was just her basic statement of faith and truth in life that it's all going to be okay. So are we there? Yeah, we're working on it. We're not quite there yet. What Ernest Holmes says is there's something we can really get trapped in, a couple of things that keeps us from, because suffering is not God ordained. A suffering God is an impossibility. God is a creative energy. And you know what? You and I have that divine ability to handle every human experience creatively and effectively. We have that ability if we just step into it. But when we get trapped, he calls it a cosmic trap, where we step into the collective thinking that to be good, we must suffer. Anybody relate to that? Did you ever relate to that? Thinking that suffering was a good thing, that, gosh, if I work really hard and I toil and trouble. Well, Ernest Holmes says, but we're born to be happy, to be supplied with every good thing. Not everything, every good thing. To have fun in living. To consciously unite with the divine power around us and within us. And to grow and expand forever. We're not here to suffer, but we get this mental attitude. We have to start training our mind to contemplate good. Did you hear that? To contemplate good, because the problem when we suffer, it's because our conscious mind and our subconscious mind aren't in communication with the affirmative side of life, which is the goodness of God, of spirit, of unconditional love. We haven't gotten that unified yet. So we get stuck in that, thinking that word suffering is just part of life. Pain is part of the human experience. Suffering isn't, but pain is. And we need to be able to find out what's the darkness in my life teaching me right now? I mean, think about it. Let that be your question of the day. What is it here for? Because it's here for something. And then the other problem, we go into denial and addictions because we're not taught how to deal with pain and hurt. Did you get lessons from your parents? I didn't, but maybe some of you did have exceptional parents that taught us how to deal with pain and suffering and loss. we don't have that in our culture that I've seen. And so we go into denial and addiction, either behavior, a substance addiction, to numb our feelings of anger and depression and confusion and hurt. But if we numb them, we're also numbing the love and joy that we're meant to express. We're here to make sense of them. I want to tell you something else from that beautiful Joseph Campbell. He said, this is in his book, The Joseph Campbell Companion. He said, participate joyfully in the sorrow of the world. We cannot cure the sorrows of the world, but we can choose. We can choose to live in joy. The world is perfect. It's a mess. It's always been a mess. We're not going to change it. Our only job is to straighten out our own lives. Straighten out our own lives. That's all we can really do. We can fix things out there, but until we fix ourselves, because our energy is quite contagious. And if we can fix ourselves, then we can really make a huge impact in this world. Huge. If we can right now realize that when we train our minds to think about good, we need some tools, right? How many of you just think when something bad happens, you just automatically think something good? Oh, come on. We know we don't, but we have to have little stepping stones, little tools that will get us back in alignment with what is good and right and true. And if we can have a statement of truth that helps us, if we can have something that we can just pull out of our pocket to remind us, oh yeah, this is my experience, because the meaning of life, yes, is to be alive, and the meaning of life is to have experiences. And if we're going to have the experiences of joy, there's going to be experiences of pain and difficulty also. It's the whole kit and caboodle. And this morning I looked up, I can't remember, I know some of you know, who said, there is neither good or bad except thinking makes it so. You've heard that. Who said it? Yes, who said that? Yes, thank you. Exactly, from Hamlet. Shakespeare said that, didn't know that, but that came up. There is no good or bad except thinking makes it so. So if we can start working ourselves to think something better, we can change our experience and what's going on in our life if we can change our mind. So what's your statement? A strong statement of faith. Do you have something that you just know is true, that's good? Mine is just what I said before. I know that God is good and God is all there is. I absolutely know that. There's no question about that. Sometimes it makes me a little hard on myself, but it's true. You know, God is, and I pull that one out and it helps me. What's your statement of good? What do you think about that pulls you up? Have one. If you don't have one now, be sure you go home and make a statement of truth that's simple and short, and you can, okay. And in those tough times, you can just say it in your mind until you feel in alignment. In alignment. Pray, meditate, contemplate. Feel that word can just bring you back to that place of connection. Now, the Hopi elders in 2000, I don't know, I've read that prophecy so many times. It's 11 years old now. But I remembered it when I was thinking about Bridge Over Troubled Waters. I was thinking, you know, the Hopi elders said, there is a river that's moving very fast right now. It is so great and swift that some will be afraid and they'll hold on to the side. And they'll feel like they're being torn apart, and they will suffer greatly because they're not willing to let go. That it didn't say that in there, but they're not willing to let go. He said, we have to let go and go to the middle of the river. The middle of the river. Keep our heads above water, our eyes open, and look to see who's with us and celebrate. The time of the lone wolf is over. We are the ones we've been waiting for. And so we're here as a group to be the change, to hold the good, to know the strength that we have within us. And we've got that in us now. I was listening to, I think, CBS Sunday Morning, and there was Jane Pauley was on there, and she was talking about, or one of the guys was on there, about Broadway coming back and how people are so excited because not only do the actors and the singers have so much joy when they're working together, they become a better self when they're unified. But the audience gets excited. They want to give to the audience, bring joy. They want to enjoy the audience. And there's a collective effervescence. And he was talking about a sociologist named Emil Durkheim that talked about this collective effervescence when people come together in joy. And they have the same thought and the same action. And it excites people, it lifts them up. And they are transcended from an I to a we. Do you understand that? Transcended, where you become bigger than yourself. So I want to close right now. Kirk, if you could come give me some music. I'd like us to be in a little collective experience so we can see how effervescent we get. So as I do, if you feel like closing your eyes, please do. Put your feet on the floor. Just open yourselves. Open yourselves. We can feel the darkness, but we're not going to dwell in it. We're not going to dwell in it. We're just going to ask, how can I lift myself up? What can I know better now? How can I step into a better version of myself? So just feel right now that we are in, not all the way, because we're part out of the troubled waters, maybe just up to our waist. Just feel it. We're in that. We're moving out of these troubled waters of the pandemic, the situations that have been brought, all the different confusion and the concern that has been stirring up the flow of life. And just feel yourself as you're halfway out of this water, and just notice coming out of the water is your divine self, your better self, the part of you that knows the truth. And it just comes out of the water and moves right in front of you. That spirit, that light, that love that is your God essence, your divine nature, your spiritual being is out there in front of you. It's open and available right now. And feel yourself as you move closer to this part of you that knows the truth, that is the truth, that feels the love of spirit, that's open to the divine revelations, insights, wisdom, all of that. The part of you that is more than what you're experiencing right now. And as you move closer to this energy and essence that is your truth, that is your light, as you step out and come out of the water, come out of the darkness and move into the light of your true essence, just feel yourself letting go of all the troubles, all the concern, all the difficulties, and moving into the place of understanding and knowing there is a divine plan. I am on purpose. Being my real self, my true self, is the greatest gift there is. And as I unify my spirit with my physical being, as we are united as one, I truly come alive. And I know I am able to be creative, to be conscious, to move forward. I let go, and I let God, my divine self, be me. And take a moment as we have seen ourselves come out of the water, come out of the darkness, as we see ourselves moving into something greater and unite with our best self. Feel the release, feel the joy, feel the love. As we unite and look around and